It's Bill Gross, the LA probate expert, and this is our Tuesday real estate investing Zoom where we get together and talk about all things real estate investment. Whether you want to invest, new investor, experienced investor, wholesaler, real estate agent, vendor, we get together and try to help each other make more income and, most importantly, in the long run, accumulate more wealth. I'm Bill Gross. I'm a real estate broker in Southern California. I'm building a national team of probate experts throughout the country. And I'm really excited to interview different people here on a regular basis. And this week, I'm really excited to have a guy who has become a friend through our business. We met a few years ago, I think right when COVID was launching. It was impossible to meet in person. We met in person, if I remember right, in Beverly Hills at the Regis there, and began a friendship and a business relationship. And since that time, he's done some amazing things. Before that, we talked in the Zoom before, but you have a chance to meet with him today. Please welcome my friend and business partner and colleague, Paul Krause. How you doing, Paul?
Great, Bill. How are you?
Great. And I think Paul
Good to see
has
you.
one of the most interesting and appealing virtual Zoom backgrounds of anybody I know. I always fall for wow, where's this mountain chalet, man? I'm so impressed. And I realize it's probably nice. That's not really your backyard or your living room. So
I wish it was. It's Colorado, and I wish it was. And yeah.
I fall for it every single time. So give us a little background, you Paul. I know that you live here in California. Give us a little background of where you grew up, and then more importantly, how'd you get into real estate?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. And thanks for having me on the call. I'm just going to go all the way back to the very beginning. I got into real estate with, I got into business with very little to nothing. I mean, no joke. Like when I left college, I had $100 in my bank account, no joke. And I paid for one extra semester of college. It was $5,000. I took out the loan myself. My parents said, it's already been 4 years. We're not going to pay for any more school. You got to pay the rest of the way. I had one more semester to go. So I had $100 to my name when I started in business world. And when I was in my early 20s, I knew immediately I wanted to be a stockbroker. And that's probably a call unto itself, but I did that for 12 years. And at age 32, I decided I had done everything on Wall Street that I wanted to accomplish. I had been in sales, I had been in management, and I just felt like, this is not the last and final chapter for me. So I literally left corporate America for about 5 years, and I just became a musician. I spent a lot of time just trading the market to make money, but otherwise I spent a ton of time just playing music. I went to Musicians Institute in Hollywood. I said, this is something I always wanted to do as a kid. So I said, I'm going to go for it now. I'm 32 years old, and I was the oldest student in the program where I learned professional recording. And around the end of my 5th year of just playing with different bands and recording music, and I got this itch where I just felt like there was something else I wanted to do. And a good friend of mine said that he was going to go to Glendale to learn how to fix and flip properties at a seminar. So I jumped on it. I said, I'm looking for something else. And I don't even know what I'm looking for, but that sounds as good as anything to me because I don't want to go back to being a stockbroker. So I went to the seminar, made some really good friends, stayed in touch with those people. My very first fix and flip deal that I did after that seminar, I made $38,000.
Nice.
And that was in 2006. So immediately I said to myself, this is bigger than any commission that I could have earned as a stockbroker. And this is life-changing money. This is probably, going to be what I do. But I felt like when I was going through the process, wobbly, shaky feet the whole way through, very nervous about every single thing, couldn't sleep for, 45 straight days, reached out for a lot of help. And ultimately I did get a lot of help. And what I eventually found was that it was better to tap into people who knew exactly what they were doing than to try to become like something that I wasn't. So for example, this one property, I had to fix some things up. Well, I didn't know how to fix anything. I honestly did not. My background was like financial sales. That was it. That was my background, that and music. So I decided that it was a good idea to start to get to understand what the trades were doing, because the one thing I did know how to do is go out and get quotes and bid and negotiate things. So thank God I brought that with me. But that was the only thing I had going for me, because I had no big sum of money sitting in some big giant bank account that I could start, all of a sudden just start investing in my own flips. And my first flip was actually a wholesale bill. It wasn't even with money. I didn't exchange any money. It was contracts. So fast forward from 2006, I decided to get my realtor's license, and I was doing wholesaling, fixing and flipping property, learning some trades, making friends at the local RIAs, and whatever networking opportunity I could find, I would go to, because I found I liked networking a whole lot more than cold calling. There was just something about it that just seemed a lot more natural, and it just made sense, because you could get into interesting conversations with people in a much easier way than having to break the ice and being an expert about breaking the ice. I'm terrible at that, by the way. I'm not, like, if I feel like I have to break ice with someone, that for me is like a still to this day challenge. So I focused on what I knew how to do. And fast forward to about 2012, there was a hedge fund called Blackstone that was hiring. I didn't know anything about Blackstone other than what they did on Wall Street, but they were getting into the housing market. And they were hiring for this one position. It was a kind of a property management position. And at the time they were connected with Riverstone Residential. Fast forward, I got hired. I started doing this gig with Blackstone, which was a contractor position. And they were buying about 40 houses a day at the auctions. And they were buying mostly distressed properties. And I had done this for 5 straight years. The company went public, called Invitation Homes. And after about my 4.5 year, I knew I was coming to the end of my stretch, because it just wasn't like fulfilling. It felt like something was missing, like I wasn't playing a big enough game, but I really did not know how to go to the next level, and felt a little stuck, frustrated, making decent money. But
just to clarify what you're saying, you literally are working for the biggest home flipper in the country, where they were buying 40 or 50 a month in your region or your city. They're buying around the country at the time.
Yeah.
And here you still feel like you didn't know what you're doing. Isn't it interesting in retrospect now? Isn't it interesting?
I'll share with you guys that Invitation Homes, if anyone writes the book about it, I don't know if I will, but if anyone writes the book about it, it was absolutely run like a small business with Fortune 500 money. I mean, it really was. It was a very, very small group of people. And it was probably one of the most dynamic companies to work for, because the changes that were taking place every single day, I just never felt like I had footing in this company, because everything was like a race. It really did feel like a race. Buy as much real estate as possible, get it rehabbed, rent it up as quickly as possible, keep doing it. And what the company was doing on Wall Street, which was a much bigger thing, but in the field, the way, I think there was like 8 of us who were like leasing these properties up and covering like hundreds of properties. No joke. Like I would sometimes lease up 13 properties a month, and that was like a slow month. I mean, I can't even tell you what that was like. It was such a fast pace, and my region went from Lancaster south to Long Beach, and then west to Ventura, and then east to about Orange. So being on the road is an understatement. I mean, I seriously probably put 25,000 miles on my car just in like the first year. But so that's a little about how that went. So during that time, like I said, I made some good friends. I partnered with a guy to get my contractor's license, and decided that I really wanted to understand the cost component to the business so I could really make more money on the kind of flips I was doing. And why did I do that? Because what I was seeing happening very quickly, even from my own company, is that the prices were moving very, very fast every year, from 12 to 13, 13 to 14, and so on. And I felt like it was starting to get to one of those things where you would work really, really hard to put a lot of money up to make the same kind of profit margins we were making back in 2006. And that was really the way I felt about it. I felt like it was getting very, very tight on the margins. So by the time I had left in 18, I didn't know where to go. I went to Keller Williams. A friend of mine recommended it. I interviewed several houses. I picked the one that was honestly closest to my house, where I could drive there, be there in 7 minutes. And even though I found some interesting things about it and some interesting people and learned some interesting ways to find listings, I never felt like a listing agent. And I felt like the reason why I had my license was honestly to build in profits, so that if I could not make money on a deal because costs got too out of control, I always had control of the listing. So that was one of the things that I learned early about, if you're going to have a license, and you're going to be involved with these flips, make sure that you control that listing at the end of the day, so that you at least have that money to walk away from as a part of the profit margin, so that if your margins shrink, you still got that. So
really running your business for your investment, not running the business to be a listing agent.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like I still reached out to friends, family, I door knocked, I did all those things. I door knocked the Outpost Estates, no joke, for like 9 straight months, and just went up and down all the time, because I wanted that to be my niche. And don't even ask me why. That's like a whole nother call, but that was just one of the places that I picked. And what eventually happened was I started getting calls from people who they wanted an agent to do high-end open houses. And I put my hand up for one of them that was right down in Hermosa Beach. And I said, I'll do that. I live in Hermosa. And so I met this interesting guy who turned out to be a hard money lender. He didn't introduce himself as that at the time. And instead, it was really just him and his wife. And they were talking about how they wanted to remodel their home. And I immediately just said, well, I can remodel your home. What do you need? So we just got talking, and that relationship turned into several other relationships that did turn into listings and representation and commissionable deals. But it was the act of putting my hand up constantly. That was something that I knew I had to keep doing, because I just did not feel like I knew quite yet really where I wanted to take my career. I had no idea. I was still trying to figure it out. And I put my hand up at the right time, and this gentleman and his wife introduced me to some other people that helped me to basically stay afloat and actually have a pretty good year. So it was when that happened that a good friend of mine who owns property across the street from where I live mentioned to me that he wanted to put a fix and flip deal together, and could I come do the inspection with him? And I said, of course I will. And I looked at the deal. This is kind of funny, actually. I looked at the deal and he said, so what do you think I do this for, about $100,000? This is a fix and flip in Torrance. And I said, absolutely not. I said, if you can do this for $175, you will amaze me. And he goes, oh no, are you serious? And I said, why? He said, because I'm paying $980 for this property. I said, well, here's the good news. The good news is even if we spend $175 or even $200, there's so much demand. Like, I already knew the whole neighborhood. There was so much demand that I knew he would be able to rent it out and still make money while the property, was still appreciating, because we were still on the early side of the rise. This was about 2018 and a half now. So I did a flip. I did this flip with him. He hired me. We became closer friends. We got to know each other a lot better. And I expressed to him about 3/4 of the way through the deal, I said, with the amount of money that you're looking to move into deals, I can keep busy all year long, and I guarantee you I can make you at least 8 to 15% on your money just in interest if you're willing to look at some of my flips I've done in the past, judge me in my performance and go out there and find some deals. So he said, you know what, send me your portfolio. And I sent it to him. 6 months went by, and we kind of carried on a conversation. And eventually by June, July of 2020, was it 20? Yeah, it was 20. I said to him, I'm going to travel out of state. And he said, well, what you looking for? And I said, I think I'm looking for multifamily properties. I have a good friend who's told me about Houston. Fast forward, right before I booked the flight, one of my friends from the RIA said, don't go to Houston, go to Chicago. And I said, why? He said, trust me.
Now, just to back up, RIA's Real Estate Investment Association. It was a real estate networking group that you're part of.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And he said, no, you got to go to Chicago with me because I've been doing deals there for 8 years. The cash flow outcompetes in all those markets you're looking at. Trust me, I look at them every day. And I said, well, tell you what, show me what you're doing and I'd be willing to do it. So it took me 3 months to do my due diligence and kind of go through his deals and just talk and just kind of connect. Like, all right, are we going to, try to make some money together? Because I really wanted to see what this looked like because I didn't know anything about the Chicago market up to that point. And honestly, I didn't know anything about the Houston market. But what I did know was numbers. And the numbers that I was seeing and talking to other people about, I was convinced there was an opportunity outside of California. So in November of 20, I flew out. We looked at probably 7 or 8 deals a day for 3 straight days. And the last deal was a 14-unit apartment that was nearly empty. And there was just something about it that I said, you know what, the bones on this are great. Why is it empty? And we started talking it over and it's starting to get dark, the listing agent, I think he just wanted to go home. He's like, look, it's all right if you don't want it. I said, no, but why? So we kept talking and talking. We're in the backyard. There's only one guy living there at the time. And he had been there, by the way, for 25 years. So there was a guy who had been there for 25 years and the whole rest of the building was empty. And I was asking more about it and trying to really figure out, well, what's the motivation? Well, the motivation is this is, one of the sellers passed away. The wife is a do not wanter. That rang bells in my ears. And so we got talking more and more and more. And I said, well, look, I do not want to get on the plane unless we can get this under contract because there's something about this that's telling me we have to put this under contract now. So my partner said, okay, fine, we'll write it all up, but we'll submit it tomorrow because Chicago's not like LA. It's just different. Trust me. So I said, okay, that's fine. So we did put that deal under contract. We bought it for cash, closed on it right before Christmas. And that was my first out-of-state apartment building. And yeah, it was exciting. It was scary at the same time. But there was a lot of things that went into all of that. There was a lot of due diligence. So I want to kind of just pause there.
Well, let's pause there for a second. I have some questions. I want to make sure people heard this because I think when somebody has some success, we all see them standing on the victory parade, waving hands and confetti, but we miss the work that goes into it. You said that in Chicago alone, which you knew nothing about multifamily before you went there, you looked at 7 to 8 properties a day for how many days?
For 3 straight days. Yeah.
Okay, so you look at 21, 23 properties, 24 properties in a 3-day period, right? Now, that's a lot of deals. That's a lot of work. Those are busy days, having done that.
Oh, they were. Yeah, I mean, it was like lunch was like 30 minutes and then just because we were trying to beat the daylight. And this is November there in Chicago, which is shorter days, shorter daylight. Yeah.
Cold. So again, I just want to emphasize the work that went into this. You looked at a bunch of deals, I'm sure, on paper. You actually saw 20, 25 in person. Most buyers don't look at half of that. And many of people on the call, and many of us will look at 5 deals and go, oh, there's nothing to buy. But here, and you said literally this was the last deal of all of them that you looked at. Now, the other thing about the last deal is it was the last deal, but also was the one that you had all the information of the first 20 or so to build on, maybe, meaning maybe if you got in the other order, the first one might have been a good deal, but you didn't know it yet because you didn't see the other 20 deals to get the data to evaluate it properly. And so I just want to point out the work involved that it takes sometimes, not always, but sometimes if you put the work in, you become an expert, you start to know the numbers. And you said the same thing, if I just go back again, on your flips, when you got this partner, the money partner involved, you said the same thing, that you knew that market area you'd been door knocking so well that when this deal came up, and even though the expenses were higher than he planned on, you knew the ARV well enough to encourage him to make the decision to move forward, again, by virtue of the door knocking you did. So a lot of this is on one hand, you're new and you're learning. On the other hand, you're putting the work in. So I just want to make sure we all stop and take appraisal of what's going on here. Is you were determined and you were doing the work that led to the knowledge, that led to the opportunity that you took advantage of.
Yeah, and Bill, the only way I learn something, because everyone has different learning styles, my learning style is immersion. If I am not totally 100% immersed in it, trying to learn every single thing about it that I can, I honestly will not learn whatever it is I'm trying to learn more about. So my feeling about the whole thing was, it was 3 months of a lot of due diligence and looking at deals and pricing and days on market and tenant mixes and occupancies. You know, is a 1 bedroom, you know, really as rentable as a 2 bedroom? Do you have to have 2 bathrooms? Is it better to have 1 bathroom? Like I need to know those details, like, because to me, that's how I learn it. So that's my style. So everyone's going to follow whatever their style is. And
Sure.
and if I could learn things much faster, then I would, but that's just what it takes for me.
I think it's everybody. I think that you got to put the time in. There's no shortcut to learning. And when people call me and say, well, I have no money to invest, I want to flip properties. Here you door knocked an area in Torrance. I got you an investor, and here you door knocked or previewed property in Chicago to find a great deal. But they both are the result of the work you put in. They weren't just an accident. So you took the property in Chicago. What do you think you made on that property in your profit? If you had to say, are you able to share, how much money did you make on that first deal?
I'll show you the deal. You want to share your screen, and I'll just show real quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give you privileges to share.
Okay.
Do this. First off, let me make you the co-host, and that way you can, that way you have the sharing like that. There you go.
Okay,
You should
great.
share now.
So let me go to, okay. So this was the property right here. And the reason why I'm showing you guys is because when I go to a broker networking group that I'm in, I like to show people the deals we're doing so that I can attract more capital, put more capital to work. And this is...
And just stop for a second there. Again, I don't mean to stop you, but for everybody who's listening, who's not, you obviously figured this out. And I figured this out, but I tell people all the time that if you have something to sell, if it's on the MLS, but if you have something to sell, it's off market, or you're raising capital, send it to me. Let's present it, because the more people you talk about deals, the more money you're going to make. And so you're saying the same thing when you go somewhere, bring something of value. Doesn't mean you get to show it every time, but at least when asked, you have a chance to pitch your product, which is fantastic. So go ahead.
Sure. So this is an offering that, you know, we went to a broker. We said, look, we want to give you this as a pocket listing. It's done. It's now leased up. It's stabilized. We'd like you to put together a great offering for us. And if you want to charge us, we'll even pay to charge to put this together. But more importantly, we need something really, really professional as quickly as you can. So we found a guy, one of the guys in Chicago, who's just super, like, his sales numbers are just out of this world, commercial guy with KW. So his team put this together. So the very first thing he put together was just kind of like an offering. And then the second thing was just some basic info, where he thought the potential trade price would be. And, you know, this is kind of how we finished this property on the inside. This is very reminiscent of a living room in this building. And then the last share is the appraisal that came in. So this was a property we bought for $780, put $350 into it, and this was the value conclusion at the end of the deal.
Whew.
So this was a deal where, like I said, when I saw that it was empty or near empty, because there was one tenant in there, I said, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, because we have no tenant issues to remodel this thing, and we're not doing tear down, rebuild construction. We're gonna go through the first wing, then the next wing, then the next wing. This is gonna be fast. So this took us 7 months of construction, of rehab. It took us about 4 months to lease it up. During that time, while we're leasing it up, we're applying for our refinance loan to cash out our investor. And that was important, by the way, because they take a long time when you're cashing those guys out with commercial loans. So that is not a 30-day process. That is like a 45 to 90, depending upon who you go to. So that's a little bit about this deal. So this was a great deal. We paid off our investor, and we got a good appraisal. We had to fight for this appraisal, by the way. It originally came in at $1,450,000, and we not argued, but we had a negotiation with the appraiser and said, look, I think if you base this on the income approach, because the income approach is super important if you have a fully stabilized building, this is the result. So this is how this went, Bill.
And so you were able to refinance, pay off your investor, and now you have this positive cash flow property as a result.
Right.
And on the next one. So how did
so this was kind of,
yeah. So
this
next one.
This was interesting because as we got very deep and heavily involved, I felt blessed that we could even get the first one through, because this was my first multifamily, especially out of state. And so the thing that was happening at that point was we had a lot of momentum now, because we had a lot of brokers that we were bringing by the property. We wanted them to see the work so that we could get them to tell us more about their off-market deals. So we were inviting lots and lots of people. I made several trips out there, and I went back to my one of my investors, and I said, look, we could probably get 2 or 3 more right away. Can we get some more capital, invested quickly? And he said, how quick? And I said, in the next, 30, 45 days. He said, okay, show me the deal and let me ponder it. And like 1 or 2 weeks later, he said, you know what, let's do it. And that one turned into a deal that we closed in April. That was an 8-unit. And while we were under contract on the 8-unit, I had shown him the deal with the first 14-unit and how it was cash flowing and things like that. And he said, find another. Just go find another. Like, let's just keep doing this. So we got a great tip from a broker who said, hey, I was just asked to lease this property. There's a lot of units that are way under market, and then there's some that are empty. Would you be interested? I said, well, what is it? And the broker said it's a 11-unit with a single-family house in the backyard. I said, absolutely yes. How quickly can we see it? And they were like, well, maybe in the next day or two. And I booked a flight, flew out, and it was absolutely perfect for our model. Our model being remodeling, lower occupancy of tenants, go through and do what I call neighborhood style upgrades. Like, I like to match the neighborhood. I don't want to be the pioneer, but I definitely don't want to be the laggard either. And why am I doing that? Because I know my end game. My end game is I'm going to refinance my investor at the end of my construction when I've leased up that building 100%. It's very difficult if you're under 90% in Chicago to get anybody to refinance you. So if you're over 90, you're in good standing. So it turned into 3 buildings quickly.
So it went from 0 to don't go to Houston, go to Chicago, to 1
right,
to 2 and 3.
Right. And it's not, Bill, it's not that I stopped looking at Houston either. I mean, honestly, like I was looking in Florida, Houston, Dallas, Austin. I was looking at a lot of the markets that everybody else does. You know, I was looking in Arizona. But it's just what I learned was when you have a product, you've got to tell the brokerage community quickly, because the brokerage community has tentacles that can reach so much further and faster. And it's about relying on people who they've already got their own systems in place, kind of like you do, Bill, with probate. You know, you're very well established. A lot of people know you as a probate expert. And going to a guy like yourself saying, Bill, where could I put $4 million this month with you? And that was my pitch to every single one of these brokers is, where could I go right now with, you know, whatever, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. And I did look at other properties that we didn't get. I felt like our offers were about as much as we should have offered, and I think we made the right choice on some of the ones we passed on. But it's a full-time gig. I mean, I'm immersed. I mean, it's like there's not this like extra time, because all that extra time means, are we doing everything for our buildings that we need to be doing so that we can trade up? Because that is what my goal is. My goal is to trade up. It's not to hold them for 20 years. It's what can we get into next that makes a lot of sense in the marketplace, because there just seems to be a lot of transition now, a lot of opportunity now in multifamily. So that's what I'm
else. Oh, sorry. I also want to emphasize something else you said for those of you who are starting in this. Just remember, Paul started from scratch in a sense in this area. And he got a little bit of momentum in Torrance or Redondo Beach on that first house. And then they got a property in Chicago, and he had a little bit of momentum. Momentum is the currency. Momentum is the gasoline on the fire. And for those of us who've restarted a business from scratch, you work. It's kind of like pushing a rock. It's so hard to get the thing moving.
It is.
But once it starts to move and you have a little bit of momentum, you can't stop. You got to keep pushing on it and using and leveraging that momentum for the next deal. And then it gets easier, and then you got to keep yourself in motion. So that's what we talked about a bit. And I'm glad to have him share that with us. We got to ask a really good question from Hope. She said, how'd you manage the renovation from afar? How'd you find your contractor and your crew since you were out of state?
Yeah, my partner had already done about 12 flips, single family as well as units. So we hired his team on the initial, and I was in charge of the control fund. And we would do meetings, every other week or every other 2 weeks sometimes. Sometimes we do impromptu meetings. Sometimes I would just go fly out and just, okay, I'm coming back next month. It's not rosy the whole time, right? I mean, when you're going through the process of construction, sometimes you're just finding things that you missed on the inspection. So it's not that it goes easy just because you have someone locally. You still have to work through issues and little simple things like all the meters are gone. You have no electrical meters, so you have no electricity. And everybody knows that if you're in an extreme climate with, Chicago, between it's hot and cold, no electricity could mean the difference between working and not working.
Right. I see, Annabelle, you have your hand up. Is that a high five or is that a question? Go ahead and let me see. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, she has her hand up. Yeah.
Anybody else who's on the call, if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand or put it in the chat box and I'll call on you. For security reasons, we have to mute everybody because we got Zoom bombed a couple times, so we're going to try to play it safe. Annabelle, by the way, is a host or hostess of her own call on out-of-state multifamily investing on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Annabelle Pacheco, how you doing?
I am good, thank you, and happy to be here and listening to Paul. I'm always fascinated by his stuff.
Thanks.
Paul, keep me posted if you are, multifamily, you're looking and you find stuff, reach out to me because I'm definitely interested. And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
money for it.
I absolutely will. I mean, I would love to do a deal with you. And you inspired me at a time when I wasn't doing this. I was learning. And your story. So if everyone doesn't already know, Annabelle's got her own call in multifamily investing, how to get your first deal. And I signed up right away. I didn't know anything about how to do it. I really didn't. But, she's a great teacher. And it was like, okay, now I understand it, because you just get on that call every week. And it's like anything else in life. When you keep showing up to the same, watering hole, right? Or fishing spot, or whatever you want to call it and describe it. At some point, you start becoming familiar with your surroundings. At some point, you start getting comfortable with where you are and the people that you're doing it with. And you have a great call. And so anyone who doesn't know, you do yours on Wednesdays. Is it at 2? Wednesday at 2?
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah. So, I mean, but absolutely. I would love to partner and do something with you, because it would be just such a blast. And
That would be nice.
and I think that's the point of these Zooms, is for people to connect so that we can do business together. We can be profitable together, because as everyone knows, doesn't matter if you're doing residential or multifamily, there's a lot of people out there who absolutely, they just want their commission. They just want their deal. And if you're not careful, they're not going to let you make money in a deal. So it's so much more fun when you're working with people that you like, know, and trust. That is such a crucial part of this business.
100%. And I just wanted to reiterate that there's no better lesson than immersing yourself in whatever it is that you're looking to do. I mean, when I went out and bought my multifamily, I had no idea. I mean, I only had managed, 3-4 units, right? And it's overwhelming, and it's so many steps. I only cover a little bit of what I've done, or at least what I can share in 10 minutes, and then I allow for us to learn on other stuff. But there's nothing like just throwing yourself in there and just figuring it out, and you learn, and then you feel like you've accomplished something so great. And but yeah, it's awesome.
Annabelle's a great example. Not only did she flip a property and you shared this on your call, I can say how much, right? On her first multifamily, over $1 million profit.
It's just so huge.
Not only that, she's interviewed a couple of people on her call that I've also met and interviewed and watched her call. And as a result, I've invested in a couple of deals, along with her in a couple of cases. So, in fact, my daughter and son-in-law had to take my cash away from me. They did a financial intervention. They said, "No more real estate, Dad. You need to diversify more." So,
That's
make
funny.
more money. I need more extra cash they don't know about, so I can get another deal here shortly. So stay tuned with that. But yeah, she has a great show, and the link is in the chat box if you're interested on Wednesday at 2:00. Okay, so we have two people here, Annabelle being a second, who started just in the time I've been doing this call during COVID, just in the last 2 years, just since I'm speaking to you on this call right now, have been thinking about being on this call or been here. These two have both built over $1 million businesses doing what we all say we'd like to do at some point. So if you have an interest in doing that and you're scared on the first step, here's your chance. Raise your hand and put it in the chat box. I'm more glad to call on you. This is meant to be participative. There's no stupid questions. If you don't know the answer, I assure you 5 other people would love to have the question as well. And while we wait for that, Paul, this is new for you, feeling that you've accomplished this. It's new for you to feel the momentum you're capitalizing on. What was it that got you from I'm not quite there yet to over the hump? What was the one thing holding you back that you were able to push yourself through to achieve this success?
I think I think that you for me, you know in your gut when you're having fun in your career and you like your life. And for some people, it's in their business and then in their job and in their career. For other people, it might be only when they're on vacation, two weeks out of the year. That was like me as a stockbroker for a really long time, and it was so relaxing to be on vacation. And the Sunday night blues that I would get would literally start at about 11 a.m. Sunday morning, because I knew Monday I had to grind it out. So what I wanted to do was what I call life by design, right? I read a lot. I consume ideas from people who are very successful. I don't agree with everybody. I agree with some people a lot. And it doesn't matter what they're writing about. It doesn't matter if they're in the sciences. It doesn't matter if they're in the arts. I look at all those things, right? And my whole thing is just as I try to design my life, I try to think about, well, what am I going to enjoy doing? Like, yeah, there's certain things that we all have to do. Like we got to do accounting and taxes and things that, to me, it doesn't excite me at all, right? But there's got to be some aspect that you can find in your career that once you get to play in that area, so to speak, that gets you excited. I mean, I know people that they get excited about numbers. I don't really get excited about numbers. I actually get more excited about like just meeting people, because I feel like you really don't know who you're going to meet, what's going to happen. But I think the critical thing that happened for me, Bill, was you challenged us when I joined EXP, and I remember Annabelle being on that call too. And you said, look, take steps to do new things, to reach out to new opportunities, be open-minded, start a call, start a newsletter. And even though I'm not the quickest learn, like I'm not the quickest, because I feel like I need to analyze things first before I understand how I'm going to do them. I followed your advice, and there was times, honestly, where, and there still are, where it's like, wow, I've reached a point where I don't understand what to do next. But see, now what's different is that because I forced myself, ultimately I forced myself because I wanted to be able to have assets that generate that passive income that I knew successful people were already enjoying. But I feel like I know where I need to get the answers from. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. Doesn't matter to me if someone's younger, older, any of that stuff. Like, to me, it's I'm a results-oriented person. What are the results we're going to get? What are the results we're going to get if we do A, B, or C? And asking lots of questions and being a super good listener. I don't profess to be an expert at things. Instead, I feel like I'm just a student of this business. I'm grateful for how far we've come so far. I'm grateful for what we've accomplished. And I want to just keep following through in that spirit, because I really do see the bigger opportunities now. So, you kind of putting out that challenge was the kick in the butt for me that I needed to break away from some of my comfort, which it wasn't really that comfortable, honestly, when I really look back. Break away from that comfort and say, I'm going to try something here. And if I get in a jam, the one thing I am good at is I'm good at asking questions. So the desire to get to passive income, Bill, was a big part of it. And now I'm not even thinking about where I would source the funds for a deal. If I hear that there's a deal, I already know there'll be funds. I already know there'll be capital. There's a lot of capital out there, gang. There just is. And they're still chasing the deals. So
I would say that for years. If you have a deal, there'll be money for it. The problem is not finding the lender. It's not finding the capital. It's not finding the financing. It's the deal. And if you find a good deal and you understand what it looks like, and I think, so I'm going to ask you guys who are listening, who want to go from where you are to having built wealth like Paul has and Annabelle has, and I have to a degree, and built passive income or residual income. Those who want to do that, what lessons have you taken from Paul's story today? If you have a question for him, maybe it's just too overwhelming to even think about, or it's not an area that you want to get involved with. You obviously want to increase your income and build wealth to have the life you want to have. What are your takeaways? And I'm going to, share a couple that I got out of this call. One is a reminder: momentum is gold. Momentum is platinum. Momentum is the most valuable resource in a business. When you have momentum, everything is easier. When you don't, it's so hard to get started. But once you get a little movement and you use that, the momentum is so powerful. And you hear that in his story at a couple of key junctures. Who else has a takeaway today? What did you learn from this call that you can put into your business or your investment career to help you move forward? Anybody want to share a takeaway? Melissa, you can put in the chat box or raise your hand. Or if I happen to see you, like Melissa, I always have my eye out for her. Melissa, what did you take away from today? I have to unmute you, I guess. So now I've got to find you and unmute you. There you go.
Hi, everybody. So I think one of the main things I want to take away from it, I think that Paul's journey of what he did and the listening aspect of it is a huge, huge piece. And I want to also mention that, I've been on his calls, which he usually puts into the chat on Tuesdays at 12.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I totally blew that up.
And, it goes back to listening to what his journey was. Somebody was willing to share with him. That's the same what Bill does as well. And I've taken lots of pieces, and I feel this year, my first deal is going to be around the corner because I have listened to the individual journeys and what's going to be that. So I'm crossing my fingers. I told Paul kind of precursor to it. I still have to follow up with you, but that's a good takeaway, is the listening aspect to it and figuring out, where does your talent lie? Are you a wholesaler? Are you a bird dog? Are you a flipper? There's so many different things you can do in real estate to make money. And this is our support network. We've got Sean that does photography. You've got me who does property management. You've got Dave. He does also passive, income for investors too, that maybe you're not sure how to handle rehab. So, we got superstars here that we get to bump elbows with. So thank you for that.
She is too. And let me just share real quick. Melissa brought a Texas deal today that we broke it down. It was a Houston deal. We broke it all down, and she thought it'd be a great idea. It was a 44 unit, and it's so fun to go through a real life example. And not that I necessarily have the perfect way to go about it, but I think the important thing is, like what Melissa did, is that she's out there looking, doesn't really know. Well, guess what? That's really how we all start. We find something to wrap our hands around. We bring it to show and tell, and then we open up and say, okay, let's all learn from this right now. And by the time we got to the end of that, it was, this is why this is a bad deal at this price. And everyone gets to learn from that. Well, why is that? So, that kind of masterminding is only available in groups like this. So Bill, thank God, you created this. Thank God you told me about eXp Realty, because really, just the shortcut that you provided by bringing us all together. And I know it's not hundreds of thousands of people, but small groups can get a whole lot accomplished.
Yeah.
I want to share one real quick thing. In my very first fix and flip, I got together with a guy who funded my deal, and it wasn't going well at all. I wasn't going to make any money. He was going to get paid, and that's what mattered to me. As long as he got paid whole and got, everything I promised him, I kept all my promises, I knew I'd be able to go back to him and ask him for another deal. Him and I got working on some cost control stuff on this one flip. It was a single family. And at the end of that meeting, working with him, he was managing $50 million, by the way. He's managing a lot of capital. He said something to me. He said, when two minds come together, it's almost the power of four. And I totally believe that. So I can't encourage enough that I feel blessed to have you guys. Bill, I'm so thankful that you came into my life and you invited me to EXP and you challenged us, and Annabelle's call and Annabelle's contributions, and the people like Melissa who are now coming to my calls weekly, and your contributions. Because when we come together, I mean, really, we learn so much faster. Sometimes you don't learn stuff that, maybe it's not going to be a money-making opportunity, but that's okay. Now we just learned what to avoid.
Yep.
So that is just so powerful right there. So thank you for everyone who's been on my call, because that really has also helped me to be able to sort out deals, to really stay clear about what it is we're really trying to accomplish. We don't have to take advantage of our fellow man or our fellow woman to make money in this business.
No,
there are times when people put their hands up and they say, I'm done with this property. I don't want to do any more work like you do. I'm 75 years old. I want to play golf. I'm going to do that 8 hours a day. That to me is going to be more fun. You go make a fortune with this. I'm done with it. I'm through and I'm over.
Right.
And that's not taking advantage. That's someone who's saying, I relinquish control to you, because you could probably come in with your enthusiasm and your creative ideas, because creativity is how we find solutions in this world. And that's how we make our money. We make our money not because we need to find someone to take advantage of, but because we find someone who has said, you know what, I just don't want to do it anymore. Or maybe they're in a life situation where it's like, no, my partner used to do this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. This is painful for me to own this property, whatever the case may be. So I want to encourage people that, look, I mean, there's lots of ways to approach this business, but the way Bill is doing it right now, to me, is what I feel like is one of the best ways we can come together and get deals done and find success through each other, because everyone contributes something with their different points of view. And that's really critical. And that's how we learn, staying open-minded to that. So
thanks. Sean Barrett, our group photographer. Sean, how can we help you? What question do you have for Paul?
No, I just wanted to answer your question and thank you and all of your guests. I mean, yeah, I'm here, I'm hustling, doing my thing. But some of the best meetings I've got is when I just shut up and listen and then sponge. And today with Paul, while the numbers are 7 digits, they're low 7 digits, and they're realistic to get to for somebody like me. And I went from, through your calls over the last, 6-9 months of going, hey, maybe I can just be the guy that takes the photos for all these places, to, hey, 2023, I think I've got myself in a position where I can be the guy doing these things, not the guy living off the guy, but actually the guy. And I'm just so grateful for the group of us and the the whole village thing. It's just, this is one of the greatest calls in my week. This is honestly there's a couple meetings every week. There's 2 or 3 of them. And this is one or, ranked 1 or 2 of the great meetings of the week that it's fun to go to. And I just get so much out of it. And, I wish I could contribute more.
Well, look, you've taken pictures and a couple of them that sold, so I appreciate you. I know you work with other people in our group, but more than that, just know that you don't need any money. The deal that Paul found, Paul, you happen to have some capital, but if you had $0 and found that deal, could you find a way?
I had $0 in that deal.
There you go.
Let's be totally clear.
0.
I put $0 in that deal.
There you go.
And
anybody could do that. Anybody's call could do that.
Yeah.
It's not magic. It's just, but he also did all the other work along the way. Door knocked and learned the market, created credibility with the investor. Then he went to Chicago, saw 20 houses before he figured out one that made sense. It's the work that led to it. Good job. Dave Warman, you've been waiting patiently as well. How can we help you? What question do you have for us?
Oops. First of all, Paul, you and I spoke, probably a year in the last couple of years, right? A couple times.
Yeah.
And,
in person, remember?
Pardon me? Pardon me?
In person.
Yes.
When we used to be in person.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually resumed going, but that's another story. I don't want to bore you on Bill's time. But I wanted to, first of all, say thank you. And I learned a lot more about, what you're doing. And I'm really intrigued, frankly. I'm going to call you
please
and have a conversation with you outside of this. But I wanted to just applaud you for sharing your stories with the group, and you too, Bill. You always have such engaging presenters here in your group, and it's really, I think a lot of us are really, our eyes are opened on a weekly basis, and so thank you.
Well, I think the fun thing for me about this is really not that Paul is so extraordinary. It's that he's in some ways so ordinary. He's a nice guy. I like him a lot. From the first time I met him, I felt like we're friends. But really, there's nothing in his story that's extraordinary. I thought he was a general contractor. No, he just kind of learned some stuff along the way. He gets into multifamily. He had never done one before. So really, he is a smart guy. And he is very likable. But there's no superpower there that anybody in this call couldn't have done the same thing if he'd done the work that he had done to be there. That's the point. But thank you, Dave. Thank you for your kind words.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My
We're going
pleasure.
to wrap up
for
with
sure.
Cheryl Williams. I see your hand up. Cheryl, I'm going to unmute you and get you into our group. Let's see there. There you go.
Hi.
Hey, Cheryl.
There she is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll turn my speaker up a little bit. My voice
hear
seems
you.
so low. I haven't been talking. I feel more inspired of the fact being driven home that you don't need money to do a deal or whatever, or
No.
if it's the right situation. And I wanted to ask, like, how do I be in the deal if I'm an agent? Do I start out, like, for example, let me give you a quick example. I found some notice of defaults, and I've spoken to a couple of people, and they only owe, like, this one party only owes like 100 maybe and 17,000, and one owes less than that, but they're going into pre-foreclosure. And so can't I step in and how do I step into that? Like, I want to
Step into it.
how do I do that? Am I the
As a
am I the
principal.
agent, or am I gonna do I don't really know how to do a wholesale, but do I bring it to the table and say, hey, I got this, and can you help me? Because ultimately I want to list, because I just want to cross that bridge or cross
Sure.
that threshold.
So Cheryl, you're with a broker, and so I think I'll tell you my answer, but you need to get the answer from your broker, right? Because even though I'm a broker, I'm affiliated as a broker with another company, so I have to play by their rules, and also I have to follow my heart and do what I think is right. When I contact somebody as a listing agent trying to get a listing, then I'm not going to be the principal in the deal. To me, that seems unfair because they may have given me information to try to help them as an agent, and then I would use that against them, or to not use against them is almost impossible. If you want to market as an investor, and occasionally you list some property, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so you have to decide when you get the lead generation, are you getting that as an agent? Or are you getting that as an investor? And just be true to your heart and ethics is my best recommendation. But again, you need to run that question, I think, by your broker to make sure you're clear on where you're at. That said, I sold a lot of houses last year. I also flipped a couple of houses as a principal because opportunities come up, and I'm just smart enough to turn off one and turn on the other at the right time.
I mean,
So
you as the principal?
yeah, I took two properties, but I came to them initially. Both of those were cases where I worked with investors who brought me a lead. The investor wasn't looking for me to list the property. They were looking for money or looking for capital or looking for a partner or something. I said, well, I could step in and help you with that. And so I ended up buying the properties and giving them a finder's fee or a wholesale fee. And I just buy as a principal. I never talked to the seller about listing the property. So I just think you have to be clear and be very clear to the principal from the very beginning. There cannot be any ambiguity. If you start talking to them as their agent, you can't change midstream and be investor. If you start as an investor, I believe you can change midstream to an agent. It's just hard to do. Okay. Long,
Okay.
complicated question. We could start again maybe next week on it, or call me offline. Glad to go into, we're kind of up against the hour, so I want to kind of wrap up here if we can. I see the chat box of other people. So, in Zoom, you can always save or download the chat box and look at it later to see there's different people offering different services. I appreciate you guys all. Melissa and Dave and Annabelle, thanks for being on the call today. Sean, as always. And Cheryl, thank you for being on the call. Special thank you to Paul. You've been a good friend, you've been a colleague, a partner, and an
Yeah, you're
inspiration to
welcome,
watch
Bill.
you on your path here. So thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, you too. Thank you for all the questions. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your feedback. And look, if you want to know more, partnering, how I do all that stuff, this is such a small part of the iceberg. By all means, just reach out. And I actually got to catch a flight. So, Bill, I'm going to say goodbye. Great to see you. See you guys.
How would we reach out to you? If somebody wants to reach you, contact me. I'll forward it to Paul. Text me, email
Yeah,
me.
email the paul.krause at EXP Realty, the Krause and Co at Hotmail,
There you go.
phone.
Krause at xprealty.com. We'll go with that.
Yeah, that's great.
Have a great trip. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank you, guys.
Every Tuesday at 3 o'clock and Real Estate Investing Zoom.